Good day, folks, and welcome to the Anorak Review Show with your host, the Anorak. Last year, on my 33rd episode, I covered Motörhead's 1986 album, Orgasmatron, mostly for its 35th anniversary. So today, for a 45th anniversary, I wish to go all the way back to the beginning. Sort of. While the self-titled eponymous album was the first to be released, it wasn't the first to be made, to be exact. Much earlier in 1975, back when Motörhead had just formed soon after Ian Kilmister, aka Lemmy, left Hawkwind, or rather Fire to be exact, they would work on and even finish what would have been their debut. However, the company they contracted to at the time, United Artists, weren't exactly convinced of its potential, so they just shelved the finished product altogether. This is reminding me of something, yet I'm unable to put a finger on it. Anyways, so the band decided to jump ship and re-record most of the songs from scratch with Chiswick Records, and a few more albums onward with Bronze Records, and so on. Meanwhile, in 1979, Motörhead were already becoming a big success with albums like Bomber and Overkill, and so United Artists decided to cash in on that by releasing the shelved album, without permission no less, as On Parole. That'd be like if Constantine Films decided to release that 90s Fantastic Four film because of the Fox Fantastic Four films. But I'll be sure to cover such albums another day or two. But for now though, let's jump into their actual debut eponymous album, Motörhead. The cover is pretty simple, iconic, and, well, metal, introducing us to what could be considered Motörhead's mascot, Snaggletooth the War Pig, who would appear in most of Motörhead's album covers since then. This little war pig was designed by graphic artist Joe Petagno, who worked with Hypnosis and even designed the famous Led Zeppelin Swan Song logo, which was based directly after the William Rimmer painting Evening, the Fall of Day. With combined features of bear, wolf, and wild boar, with tusks and everything, this war pig could rival the likes of Eddie the Head from Iron Maiden, the Guy from Disturbed, and Vic Rattlehead from Megadeth in competing to be the most metal of heavy metal band mascots. But is the music just as punky and metal as the cover itself? Well, let's find out for ourselves, shall we? We begin this album, named Motörhead, by a band named Motörhead, with a song named Motörhead. However, funny enough, Lemmy actually originally written this song way back when he was a member of Hawkwind, during the sessions of Warrior on the Edge of Time, as a B-side for the song Kings of Speed, the last one he would ever write for the band before he was let go just a day before the album's release date. So about 2 years later, Lemmy decided to take the song of his and rework it for his own band, even naming said band after that song, while the Hawkwind version fits in more with their classic spacey rock style, plus featuring a saxophone solo and a violin solo. This version is slightly faster in pace and definitely fits more of Lemmy's style. He still did the lead vocals and bass here, but also Fast Eddie Clarke did the guitars, including a sweet guitar solo in the middle, while Phil Taylor, aka Filthy Animal, took on the drums. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal indeed. Now, whichever version is better than the other is up for personal opinion. Honestly, I enjoy both versions equally in their own ways. The word itself, Motörhead, is a slang for a speed freak, as in a junkie who's addicted to the drug speed. That or a car enthusiast. You definitely get an idea of the former as Lemmy sings about being sky high, 6,000 miles away, and on the wrong side of another day. He must have flown to a wildly different time zone then. He then admits he doesn't know how long he had been awake, but he wound up in an amazing state. Must have suffered from insomnia. He then mentions the righteous stuff, no doubt referring to speed itself and drugs in general, going up like prices at Christmas. So, wouldn't that make this count as a Christmas song then? Because, to be honest, Motörhead doing a Christmas song would have been infinite layers of awesome. Anyways, right off the bat, this is not only a good song to start the album, but also to start the band as a whole. Plus, according to Lemmy himself, it's the only rock and roll song to have the word parallelogram in its lyrics. Well, we'll see about that. Maybe. Next is Vibrator. And with a title as blunt as that, you can definitely imagine what this song would be about. Continuing the heavy punk vibes, the vocals here are very different sounding from what Lemmy may usually sound like, even back then. Mostly because it was originally sung by a different person, former guitarist Larry Wallace for the aforementioned On Parole album. But here, Lemmy sings it here from the point of view of, well, a vibrator, describing himself as larger than life and sharper than a knife. If so, then, oh boy, is the woman going to have a lot of pain just from using it, or him. A good chunk of the lyrics are very obvious with its subject matter, like how he's starting to buzz and hum, bound to improve your mood, a power pack for a heart, a new battery, and cleaning them up and putting them away. Although, to be fair, if I were a woman and if I had a vibrator that sung like Lemmy or played Motörhead songs in general, I would definitely keep it, and I would use it. Perhaps a special vibrator that could play any song of your choice, like an iPod while you're using it. I'm giving someone else an idea, aren't I? So yeah, I honestly never thought I'd ever talk about a track about a friggin' sex toy, let alone one that sings from the perspective of such. But still, only a band like Motörhead could ever do a song about said subject, get away with it, and still make a rocking track out of it. It's bound to make you vibrate to the music. Pun very much intended. Afterwards is Lost Johnny. Considering the previous song's content and what the word Johnny is often used as a slang for, I wouldn't be surprised if this song turns out to be about someone losing a condom. No, actually, it's much more vague in retrospect. While occasionally Lemmy sings and asks if you can find stuff like Valium, morphine, and a credit card, alluding to drugs like with the title track, and having to pay for such, and each time he mentions how lost Johnny is out there, baying at the moon, looking for relief, and trying to turn a trick. So, is Lost Johnny a werewolf? Though one could say that the random nature of the verses could likely represent the surroundings one tries to describe while trying to get a buzz or even during a drug trip. Like out there in the castle, they're trying to make a scream by sticking thumbtacks in a flash. No doubt another prank from Dash Bar. Midway in the song, we get another excellent guitar solo, near perfectly balancing punk rock and heavy metal. But yeah, random lyrical themes aside, if the song even has any clear meaning behind it, it's still a pretty good and hard rocking track. It's worth a listen. Side 1 ends with Iron Horse / Born to Lose, a 5-minute ballad inspired by the Hells Angels, a motorbike club in the United States. This track is from the point of view of a biker named Tramp, who calls his motorbike a stallion or Iron Horse, as he rides a road that has no end, an open highway without any bends. Boy, Tramp must have had a really cool new life after the Disney Lady and the Tramp movie. Perhaps he's a little too close to his bike though, calling it his wife and his life. Is he married to his motorbike? I mean, good for him anyway, if it's not hurting anyone, but still. I happen to have a trike that I occasionally use to ride around the street for, so could that trike be my fiancé or something? Anyways, about 2.25 minutes in, we get a pretty melodic guitar solo, linking and bridging this track together that lasts for a good minute and 45 seconds. Pretty sweet, I must say, on par with Saxon and Iron Maiden. which I wouldn't be surprised if those bands took a bit of influence from the early Motörhead stuff like this. Anyways, Lemmy's vocals return to sing about how one day they'll slide together and go for the sun on the internal run. I guess you can say they're setting the controls for the heart of the sun. Wasted forever on speed and booze, and all born to lose. No doubt losing their driving licenses due to drink driving. All in all, this is another good rock-over tune to listen to while driving down a nice long road. In a car, that is. Side 2 begins with White Line Fever. And with a title like that, you can definitely imagine and guess what this song's gonna be about. And the lyrics themselves definitely lean towards that. We're gonna give you a dreamer. It's a slow death. Bye, baby, because here I come. Won't go to sleep tonight because the white line turns me on and it hasn't killed me yet. Or at least as much as I could decipher. As much as I love Lemmy as a talented vocalist, the way his vocals are altered here can make it pretty hard for anyone to properly make out. That aside, the music itself is pretty good regardless, with the filthy animal Phil Taylor drumming away along with Fast Eddie strumming a really good guitar solo and riff, and of course, Lemmy and his backbone bass. It's also the shortest song on the Motörhead album, clocking up to almost about 2 minutes and about 38 seconds, so it's a quick one. Just don't do drugs, okay? Not even crack or cocaine. Pee Wee Herman himself put it best. It ain't glamorous or cool or kid stuff. We then go from the shortest track of the album to the longest track of the album with Keep Us on the Road, clogging up to nearly 6 minutes. This seems to be about travelling on the road, presumably on a tour, as well as having sex and drugs while on the go. Bit of a fear and loathing kind of thing. Moving high, moving fast, the machine's clean, so sweet and mean. They must be bringing along their washing machine for the clothes, as well as some Calgon to keep said machine clean and going. Then Lemmy takes off a woman's clothes, thinking she would explode. Does she have, like, spontaneous combustion or something that's set off by removing clothing? He then mentions the black things that came from nowhere and how they can't beat the shield, flying across the highway only to be smashed in the field. It's very likely he's referring to flies and other insects getting swashed and kind of swatted by the ever-speeding windscreen. That or very tiny flying black riders, take a pick really. Nearly 2 minutes in, after the second verse, we of course have ourselves yet another long yet still worthy guitar solo, lasting over 2 minutes and 20 seconds this time before the first and last verse. Yet at the same time, it doesn't seem to drag at all, changing itself up a bit while maintaining its sense of melody and rockiness. And after that verse, we get another solo before the song comes down to a classic crashing and climactic close. So with the multiple solos and instrumental gaps between vocal sections, this is probably among the closest Motörhead have ever gotten to doing a progressive rock song, similar to father band Hawkwind. Plus, with its length and how it ends, this could have easily been the ending track of the album, but as is, it remains fine as is. After that is The Watcher. Possibly the most Hawkwind sounding of the bunch here, especially with its guitar riff and some of the swirling psychedelic effects. Lemmy sings in this about how we are looking on you now and asking, what do you think you can do now? So, shouldn't this song be called The Watchers with a plural? He then explains how where he comes from, no one smiles, and every inch exists in miles. Boy, would that make tape measuring a long chore to do. But he says it's still cool, relaxed, and calm to be sitting here on the funny farm. Funny farm is a slang term commonly used to refer to psychiatric hospitals or mental institutions. So this might be from the perspective of a doctor reassuring to a particular patient. And in this funny farm, all the hilltops scream in pain. You know those phrases, the hills have eyes and I have no mouth and I must scream? Well, not only do the hills have eyes here, but they also have mouths and they do scream. There are no leaders you can blame. Unless there's an invasion of a neighboring country, then you know who to blame. Human greed destroys your sphere. That human greed just stabbed my favorite basketball. And there's no room for you out here. We're sorry, but this mental asylum has been fully booked. Then Lemmy closes out the track by repeating, "You're on your own" over and over, likely playing and teasing into the psyche and paranoia of the patient he's treating. Not exactly what I'd call bedside manners, Lemmy, but hey, if I were to have Lemmy as my doctor, I would gladly go flying over the cuckoo's nest. And so our album concludes with Train Keep a Rollin', a cover version of the song of the same name by American jazz and blues singer Tiny Bradshaw. The original song, which is often seen as a precursor to rhythm and blues and rock and roll, has had quite a few cover versions before, such as by Johnny Burnett, the Yardbirds, and even Aerosmith. Again, whichever version you may like best is up to your opinion. And of course, this version is definitely a unique one to say the least. While Motörhead would do the occasional cover of certain classic rock songs over the course of the discography, even one of Louie Louie by Richard Berry, imagine that. This may be the first instance of them doing so proper, with its dancey guitar solo and riff, and a chugging beat like a train. This cover definitely feels like a 70s punky metal throwback to the classic 50s blues rock and roll music of the old period that would evolve and influence many musical scenes to come. Tip of the hat and all. And it's indeed a good way to close up the album, although I personally think Keepers on the Road would have worked slightly better as such if they swapped these two around, but I digress. Overall, this album is pretty great. Far from perfect, of course, I may admit. It does seem a bit quite rough around its musical edges, but one may argue that such a roughness is part of its charm, since this is Motörhead actually starting out proper, and their music would get more polished soon afterwards with later albums, such as Ace of Spades. The songs here are pretty simple, yet still very rocking, bringing together the best of punk rock and heavy metal of the time, and creating this new balanced mixture that's so unique and so distinctly Motörhead. It's also a very really short album as well, at about like 32 or 33 minutes. Add like 10 minutes more, like another song or two, and you'll probably get a fuller album. But as is, it's a very quick and very fun experience. So, what do you folks think? Do you think this is a great debut for such a great album? And what album of theirs would you consider your favourite? Feel free to express your thoughts down below in the comments. Next time, we're doing yet another quick video in order to get back up to schedule. And it's another top list. This time of 5 albums that I would like to see be made into films.